Have you ever wondered why happiness always feels just out of reach? Why that new purchase, that promotion, that relationship, whatever you've been chasing, never quite delivers the lasting satisfaction you expected? There's a reason for this. A dark, uncomfortable truth about human existence that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Arthur Schopenhauer uncovered this truth 2 centuries ago, and we've been running from it ever since. His insights were so devastating, so contrary to our cherished illusions about ourselves, that we've collectively agreed to ignore them. But what if I told you that acknowledging this forbidden truth, this reality about human nature that Schopenhauer exposed, could be the very thing that finally sets you free? Today, we pull back the curtain on the greatest deception in human history. Not a deception perpetrated by governments or corporations, but by our own minds. What you're about to hear might disturb you, it might anger you, but ignoring it has already cost you more than you know. Arthur Schopenhauer wasn't like other philosophers of his time. While his contemporaries were constructing grand, optimistic systems celebrating human reason and progress, Schopenhauer was peering into the abyss of human existence. And what he saw there changed everything. At the heart of Schopenhauer's philosophy lies a revolutionary concept: the will. Not the conscious will that you experience as making choices, but a blind, insatiable force that drives all of existence, including you. Think of the will as a cosmic hunger that pervades everything. It's the force that makes plants grow toward the sun, animals hunt for food, and humans pursue their desires. It's impersonal, unconscious, and absolutely relentless. Here's where Schopenhauer's insight becomes disturbing. This will operates through you, not for you. Your deepest desires, your fundamental drives, even your sense of self, all are manifestations of this impersonal force using your consciousness for its own perpetuation. He said, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." This means your very desires aren't truly yours. They arise from this blind force of nature operating through your body and mind. This leads to Schopenhauer's most forbidden truth. Human life is essentially suffering. Not because of societal arrangements or historical accidents that could be fixed with better politics or technology, but because of our fundamental nature. Why is suffering inevitable? Because the will that drives us is insatiable. When we satisfy one desire, we experience a momentary cessation of pain, what we mistakenly call happiness, before another desire immediately takes its place. We are perpetually caught between the pain of unfulfilled desire and the boredom that follows satisfaction. Think about your own experience. Remember something you desperately wanted, a job, a relationship, a possession. Remember the anticipation, the longing. Then remember what happened after you got it. The initial rush of satisfaction quickly faded, didn't it? And soon you found yourself wanting something else, believing that this next thing would finally bring lasting fulfillment. This cycle, desire, brief satisfaction, new desire, isn't a bug in human existence. According to Schopenhauer, it's the operating system itself. Most philosophers before Schopenhauer assumed reason was the essence of humanity. He turned this upside down. Reason, he argued, is merely a tool evolved to serve the will. Your rational mind doesn't control your desires. It justifies them after the fact. It tells stories to make your driven behavior seem reasonable, considered, chosen. When you crave status, your reason doesn't say, "I'm seeking status because I'm programmed by evolution to pursue reproductive advantage." Instead, it says, "I deserve recognition for my hard work," or "This promotion will make me happy." Your conscious mind is essentially PR for your unconscious drives. Schopenhauer recognized that your individuality, your sense of being a separate self with unique desires, is itself an illusion perpetuated by the will. The feeling of being you is a trick that the universal will plays to ensure its expression through billions of seemingly separate organisms. This explains why so many of our desires are so similar. Why billions of people pursue wealth, status, power, and sexual gratification in remarkably similar patterns. We're not as unique as we'd like to believe. We're playing out the same fundamental program with minor variations. Schopenhauer's contemporary society, 19th century Europe, couldn't fully accept these insights. They contradicted the Enlightenment narrative of human progress and rationality. They undermined religious notions of divine purpose. They exposed the futility of the industrial capitalist promise that more production and consumption would lead to greater happiness. But perhaps most disturbing was Schopenhauer's conclusion that our vaunted free will is largely an illusion. The choices you believe you're making freely are actually determined by factors beyond your conscious control. Your biological nature, your past experiences, your unconscious drives. Your conscious mind is more like a passenger claiming to drive the car than the actual driver. Modern neuroscience has largely confirmed this view. Experiments show that your brain begins to initiate actions before you're consciously aware of deciding to act. Your sense of making choices is often a post hoc narrative constructed by your mind to maintain the illusion of control. So what did Schopenhauer propose as the solution to this predicament? Not hope, which he saw as cruel prolongation of suffering, but a kind of conscious resignation. By recognizing the nature of the will and our bondage to it, we can achieve moments of freedom through aesthetic contemplation, compassion, and ascetic practices that quiet its demands. Art, for instance, temporarily lifts us out of our individual desires and lets us perceive reality without the distorting lens of personal want. This is why music, literature, or visual art can produce a kind of transcendent experience, a temporary escape from the relentless demands of the will. Similarly, compassion arises when we recognize that the boundaries between individuals are illusory. The same will that operates through you operates through all beings. Their suffering is, in a profound sense, your suffering. This insight doesn't eliminate suffering, but it transforms our relationship to it. Schopenhauer's philosophy was profoundly influential, despite being widely rejected in his lifetime. Nietzsche, Freud, Jung, Wittgenstein, and countless others built upon his insights, sometimes explicitly, sometimes without acknowledgement. His fingerprints are all over modern psychology, existentialism, and even Buddhist-inspired Western spirituality. But society at large continues to run from his fundamental truth, that the pursuit of desire fulfillment is a rigged game we cannot win. A game that guarantees suffering through its very structure. Now, let's examine how Schopenhauer's forbidden truth manifests in our modern world, in ways he could never have imagined but would instantly recognize. Imagine walking through a shopping mall. Every storefront, every advertisement, every product display is designed to awaken desire. To make you feel incomplete without something you didn't know you wanted moments before. This isn't just marketing, it's the will in action, using sophisticated tools to perpetuate itself. The entire consumer economy runs on Schopenhauer's insight without acknowledging it. It depends on the fact that satisfaction is always temporary, that fulfillment always fades, that you'll always need the next thing. Planned obsolescence isn't just a business strategy, it's a metaphor for existence itself. Consider your relationship with your smartphone. Studies show the average person checks their device 96 times per day, once every 10 minutes. What drives this compulsive behavior? It's the will seeking tiny hits of novelty, connection, validation, none of which provide lasting satisfaction, all of which keep you coming back for more. When you mindlessly scroll through social media, you're witnessing Schopenhauer's will in its most modern manifestation. The infinite feed is designed precisely around the insatiability he identified. There is no endpoint, no final post that satisfies. There is only temporary relief from boredom, followed by the need for more stimulation. Dating apps provide another perfect example. The endless swiping mechanism exploits the will's constant seeking. Each potential match triggers a tiny dopamine hit, but no single match ever feels like enough when the possibility of someone better is just another swipe away. The promise of ultimate fulfillment through finding the perfect partner keeps millions swiping, even as the structure of the app ensures that complete satisfaction remains elusive. This mechanism extends far beyond consumer behavior. Consider career ambition. You work tirelessly for a promotion, believing it will bring satisfaction. When you achieve it, you experience a brief period of contentment before your focus shifts to the next level. The executive who reaches the pinnacle doesn't find peace. They find new metrics of success to chase, new competitors to outperform. Schopenhauer would look at our fitness culture and see the will expressing itself through our bodies. The perfect physique is always just beyond reach. Those who transform their bodies through discipline and effort don't find lasting satisfaction. They find new flaws to fix, new standards to meet. The bodybuilder is never big enough. The yoga practitioner never flexible enough. The runner never fast enough. Even our approach to knowledge and information reveals the will's insatiability. We consume endless articles, videos, and podcasts without integration or reflection. We mistake information gathering for wisdom, collection for understanding. The will drives us to know more without ever being satisfied with what we know. Perhaps the most profound expression of Schopenhauer's insight appears in our relationships. How many people enter romantic partnerships believing this particular person will finally bring lasting happiness? The initial passion inevitably fades, replaced by either disappointment, leading to separation and the pursuit of a new partner, or a more mature love that accepts the limitations of desire fulfillment. Parenthood offers another example. Many people have children believing it will bring fulfillment, only to discover that while it brings great joy, it also brings new forms of suffering, new desires, new fears. The will simply shifts its expression rather than being satisfied. Our political discourse, too, reflects the will's operation. We believe the right policy, the right leader, the right system will solve our collective suffering. But each political solution creates new problems. Each revolution eventually betrays its ideals. Each utopian vision crashes against the reality of human nature. The will cannot be legislated away. Look at how we've commodified even the attempts to escape the will's grip. Meditation apps, yoga studios, wellness retreats, all promising relief from the very suffering that Schopenhauer identified, all eventually absorbed back into the cycle of desire and temporary fulfillment they claim to transcend. The self-help industry, worth over $13 billion annually in the U.S. alone, is perhaps the most ironic manifestation. It sells solutions to problems created by our fundamental nature, promising that with the right technique, the right mindset, the right system, you can finally escape the cycle of desire and dissatisfaction. But notice how many people consume self-help book after self-help book, seminar after seminar, always seeking the next insight, the missing piece. The structure of the industry itself reveals the truth of Schopenhauer's insight. Social media deserves special attention as perhaps the purest expression of the will in digital form. Consider the mechanics of posting content online. What drives this behavior? The desire for validation, for attention, for confirmation of your separate existence. And what happens after you receive likes and comments? A brief satisfaction followed by the need for more. Even those who achieve viral fame report that the satisfaction is shockingly brief before they feel compelled to create again. The influencer economy is Schopenhauer's will made visible. Millions chase the dream of being seen, of mattering, of standing out from the mass of humanity. Those who achieve it find themselves on a treadmill that speeds up rather than slows down. They must produce more content, reach more people, generate more engagement, all while maintaining the illusion that they've found fulfillment to sell to their audience. Or consider the darker manifestations. Addiction in all its forms, to substances, to gambling, to pornography, represents the will in its most naked and destructive expression. The addict is not fundamentally different from the ambitious executive or the spiritual seeker. They've simply found a more direct path to temporarily quieting the will's demands, albeit at tremendous cost. Even our pursuit of meaning and purpose can be understood through Schopenhauer's lens. We desperately want our suffering to have significance, for our striving to matter in some cosmic sense. But meaning itself becomes another object of desire, another thing we believe will finally bring lasting satisfaction if we can just figure it out. The most uncomfortable application of Schopenhauer's insight might be to our cherished notion of personal growth. We pursue psychological development, believing that becoming more conscious, more integrated, more authentic will free us from suffering. But often, personal growth becomes yet another treadmill, another thing to perfect, another way for the will to express itself through us. None of this is to say that these pursuits are worthless. Schopenhauer himself advocated for aesthetic appreciation, intellectual development, and compassionate action. But he insisted that we recognize them for what they are. Not ultimate solutions to the problem of existence, but temporary reprieves from the will's relentless pressure. The truly revolutionary aspect of Schopenhauer's philosophy is that it doesn't offer false hope. It doesn't promise that with the right technique, the right belief system, or the right lifestyle, you can escape the fundamental condition of being human. Instead, it offers something more valuable: clear-eyed recognition of your situation. And in that recognition lies the possibility not of complete escape from suffering, but of a different relationship to it. A relationship based on understanding rather than delusion, acceptance rather than futile resistance. So what would Schopenhauer advise us to do in response to this forbidden truth? Let's explore the practical implications of his philosophy for how we might live in the modern world. If Schopenhauer was right, and the evidence suggests he was, then where does this leave us? Are we doomed to endless cycles of desire and disappointment? Is despair the only rational response to the human condition? Schopenhauer himself wasn't quite so bleak. He identified 3 paths that offer temporary relief from the tyranny of the will, and a 4th that offers something more profound. First, there's aesthetic contemplation. When you lose yourself in music, art, or nature, you temporarily step outside the endless cycle of desire. You become, for a moment, a pure, will-less subject of knowledge. This is why a sunset, a symphony, or a painting can produce such profound peace. They briefly quiet the will's demands. In practical terms, this means cultivating your capacity for aesthetic appreciation, not as a distraction or entertainment, but as a deliberate practice of stepping outside desire. This might mean spending time in nature without your phone, deeply engaging with art or music without multitasking, or creating art yourself not for recognition, but for the experience of creative absorption. Second, there's intellectual contemplation. By developing your capacity for abstract thought, you can temporarily rise above individual concerns to consider universal principles. The life of the mind offers moments of freedom from the will's immediate demands. This doesn't mean accumulating information or pursuing credentials. It means developing the habit of reflection, of questioning assumptions, of seeing beyond appearances to underlying patterns. It might involve reading philosophy, practicing meditation, or simply taking time for regular, deep contemplation of your experience. Third, there's compassionate action. When you recognize that the separation between individuals is illusory, that the same will operates through all beings, compassion arises naturally. By acting to alleviate others' suffering, you temporarily transcend your individual desires. In practice, this means cultivating empathy not as a moral obligation, but as a recognition of a deeper truth. It means seeing others not as instruments for your satisfaction or obstacles to it, but as expressions of the same fundamental reality that you are. This shift in perception can transform even ordinary interactions into opportunities for meaningful connection. But Schopenhauer's most radical suggestion was a fourth path, a kind of conscious resignation or denial of the will. This doesn't mean passive acceptance of suffering, but active recognition of the futility of seeking fulfillment through desire, satisfaction. In modern terms, this might look like 1. Practicing non-attachment to outcomes. You can act decisively while recognizing that the satisfaction of achieving your goal will be temporary. 2. Simplifying your life, not because minimalism is morally superior, but because accumulation never delivers what it promises. 3. Developing awareness of your desires without automatically acting on them. Notice how wants arise, how they create tension when unfulfilled, how satisfaction fades when they're met. 4. Questioning the stories your mind tells about what will make you happy. Challenge the narrative that the next achievement, purchase, or relationship will finally bring lasting fulfillment. 5. Embracing negative capability. The capacity to remain in uncertainty and doubt without grasping for easy answers. None of these approaches promises complete freedom from suffering. Schopenhauer was clear that as long as you exist as an individual, you cannot entirely escape the will's grip. But you can achieve moments of clarity and peace. You can stop adding unnecessary suffering through delusion and resistance. The most powerful application of Schopenhauer's philosophy might be simply this: stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending that the next thing will finally satisfy you. Stop believing that your dissatisfaction is due to not having enough, achieving enough, or being enough. Your suffering doesn't come from lacking something external. It comes from the very structure of desire itself. Understanding this won't eliminate desire. You're not separate from the will that expresses itself through you, but it can transform your relationship to it. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. And paradoxically, accepting this apparently dark truth can be profoundly liberating. When you stop expecting fulfillment from things that cannot provide it, you stop setting yourself up for disappointment. When you recognize the illusory nature of the separate self, you find connection with all beings. When you see through the false promises of desire, satisfaction, you become available to the present moment in all its complexity. Schopenhauer's forbidden truth doesn't lead to nihilism or despair. It leads to clarity, to compassion, to a kind of freedom that doesn't depend on external circumstances. So here's your call to action. For 1 week, observe the will operating in your life. Watch desires arise. Notice the stories your mind tells about how fulfilling their satisfaction will be, and pay attention to what actually happens when desires are met. Don't try to change anything. Just observe with clear-eyed awareness. Notice how quickly satisfaction fades. Notice how new desires immediately take the place of fulfilled ones. Notice the restlessness that drives you from one thing to the next. This observation isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to wake you up from the trance of endless seeking, to help you recognize the machinery of desire that operates largely without your conscious awareness or consent. And in that recognition lies the possibility of a different way of being. Not free from desire entirely. That's not possible as long as you exist as an individual. But free from the delusion that satisfying desires will bring lasting happiness. This is the wisdom that Schopenhauer offered, the forbidden truth that society continues to run from. The insight that might finally allow you to stop chasing shadows and start living with clarity about the human condition. The will that expresses itself through you is neither good nor evil. It simply is. Your suffering comes not from its existence, but from your identification with it, your belief that satisfying its demands will bring peace. Wake up from that dream. See reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And in that seeing, find not the happiness that the will eternally promises and never delivers, but something more valuable, the quiet clarity that comes from no longer being deceived. Schopenhauer was right, and acknowledging that might be the most liberating thing you ever do.